A crisis is coming, and we're going to tell you who said that and why. And it's a pretty big name investor, business person. But before we get to that, let's talk about the house flipping situation and specifically Zillow. What's happening with Zillow? Well, this ties a little bit in with our last report where we talked about how corporations, institutions were buying about 1/4 of all homes. And the chart that you see right now, as I hover over that last video, shows the chart of the institutional corporate buyers. And what happens when corporations, institutions buy homes? Well, the little guy, the person that wants to buy the home to actually live in, profit from it, but to actually live in, imagine that, buying a home to live in it. Crazy, right? The person that wants to buy a home to live in it has a tougher time buying the home because they have to compete with institutional money, right? And in many cases, institutions that have access to millions, in many cases, billions of dollars. And one of those institutions happens to be Zillow, and they're into the flipping, right? They buy homes, they fix them up, they sell homes. And the home flipping craze has gotten to absolute mania levels as we see many different television shows focusing on buying and flipping homes. Now, on one hand, flipping can be a good thing if you buy a home that's in just terrible condition and you make it livable, you fix it up and make it livable and then resell it. That may be good for the buyer that doesn't have the energy or the time or the resources to do the fixing up themselves. But profit has become such a motive that it's not just about making the home livable. Even homes that are livable, they buy them, they fix them up, they raise the price up high enough to recoup the cost of the reconstruction or the remodeling, but then they'll tack on tens of thousands of dollars above that. So the profit motive in home flipping really outweighs the fact that it just makes it easier for the buyer to move in turnkey condition home and not have to do many upgrades. And that's one of the many forces that continually pushes home prices higher. But again, when you have institutional money, they can come in and they can outbid pretty much all the owner occupant bidders or purchasers of those homes. But what's happening with Zillow lately? Well, the cost of labor and materials is throwing a lot of uncertainty into home flipping. Zillow pauses home buying as tech-powered flipping hits a snag. Now, here's what's going on with Zillow. In the second quarter of this year, 2021, Zillow bought 3,800 houses just in one quarter, and this is just one company, right? 25% of all home sales are going to investors right now. Not all of them big investors like Zillow, but 25% of all homes. That set a new record. But now with the labor shortage and the material, the supply shortages and the rising prices, it's beginning to be very uncertain. You see, you can buy a home for one price thinking you have to sell it for X amount of dollars to make a profit because you've already calculated the cost of materials and labor. But now with the shortages and the rising prices, it's not easy to figure out what the materials are going to cost by the time you go to remodel the home or fix it up. And according to Bloomberg, Zillow has a huge backlog of property in the pipeline waiting to get fixed up to go ahead and put on the market and resell. Right. Also, Zillow saw its shares drop as much as 11%. They did recover some, but it was down as much as 11% after the news came out. Right. So what does this tell us? Well, this tells us that Zillow is not confident that they can resell the homes for as much as it might cost to remodel these homes, to fix and flip these homes. And if they can't find materials and labor to fix up these homes, well, they're going to be stuck with the home in the same condition as when they bought the home. And that's going to make it not as attractive to potential buyers. And there goes your profit. So Zillow scaling back for now. I'm sure they'll be back when, if and when materials and labor, the situation is fixed. Will it get fixed? Maybe not. Maybe this will permanently scare home flippers out of the game. We'll have to see. Now let's talk about who is predicting a crisis. We all know that a crisis is headed here. The question is, will it be a slow, inflationary crisis where prices rise and they never stop? Or will it be the economy hits a brick wall? Well, legendary businessman, investor, market analysis, Carl Icahn is saying there's going to be a brick wall type of crisis headed our way, or there's going to be here. Of course, he doesn't know the time frame. Let's take a listen.
I will tell you this, that as far as I'm concerned, the market one day, and I believe one day in the long run, and I don't know how long it is, and I think you have to be a fool to try to tell you how long it is in this kind of a market. In the long run, we're certainly going to hit the wall, and people may say to me, well, anybody can say that. No, but I really think there will be a crisis, the way we're going. The way we're printing up money, the way we're going into inflation. I mean, if you look around you, you see this inflation all around you, and I don't know how you deal with that in the long term. But if you're asking me even what's going to happen in the next year or next 2 years or 3 years, I think it is foolish to try to answer that question. I honestly think that this money, this MMF stuff, is working to some extent.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about his comments. You can watch the full interview at CNBC. Carl Icahn, does he look like someone that's been in the game, in the business world for a few days? Of course not, right? And even he, as you just heard, he doesn't know when this thing is going to hit the wall or when the crisis is going to be here. In many people's minds, the crisis is already here. When you look at all the people that are basically living paycheck to paycheck and on the verge of being homeless. But yeah, even legendary investors that have been in the game for decades, they do not know the timeline. Why? Why is that? Well, most of you know you cannot predict a manipulated market. When you have a money machine in the background, they can create endless amounts of money and throw at the markets, bail out institutions, banks, you name it, bail out entire industries. There's no way to tell. When you have at the stroke of a pen the ability to tell people that they can't get rid of tenants that are not paying their rent. When you have at the stroke of a pen the ability for a lawmaker to come in and tell banks that they can't take someone's home if they stop paying the mortgage. When you have the unlimited money machine that can send out checks to people when they lose their jobs, right? And I'm not saying that these are good or bad things. I'm just saying that these are things that make it impossible to predict if and when we're going to see some sort of turn in the markets or in the economy in general. Even Carl Icahn doesn't know. He says that someday, of course, anybody can say someday, and eventually they'll be right. So that's what I try to point out here on this channel. Nobody really knows. Try to play both sides or both possibilities, in my opinion. That's what I'm doing. Have some cash in case there is buying opportunities. I think there will be buying opportunities, but also if you're not invested and the buying opportunities don't show up for another 5 or 10 years, if you're all in cash, you're going to get eaten up by inflation and rising prices. So maybe this will all turn around and everything will get back to normal. But I would be very cautious in that thinking because there's not much being done to reverse the situation, people. We're going to wrap this one up. Stay well, stay safe, keep stacking. Bye for now. Peace.